Now this is either number 22 or video number 23, I can't remember, so many of them. And I just want to say at this point that if you just found this video and you're just watching it and you've never seen anything like this before, to realise it's number 22 or 23 of a series of videos. It's not, doesn't stand in isolation. And it's a whole thesis, if you like, of the problem of the current state of humanity and its solution. And it's a very, very deep, complex and involved thesis with special terms that you have to see every piece of it to fully understand what I'm saying. And so to come in here and just look at it and just, oh, what's this, and out, it's best to start at video number 1. And that's why I've titled all these videos having the title The Natural Order of Poets, Bards and Druids, because that's to sort of discourage people from watching the video who might not be interested in that particular subject, and to show that it's part of a complete work. Now, I used to write books and I used to do diagrams and artwork, but now my main books, my greatest works, are a series of videos, and there are many of these on my channel. So it's necessary to understand that this channel is not a channel that comments on the day-to-day proceedings of the world, here today, gone tomorrow. This is not that kind of channel. This is a philosophical channel which has duration in time. And so I expect people to watch these videos in 300 years' time. And I was surprised, my last video, which was sexuality, the science of sexuality and the Diddy trial, I was quite surprised that nobody's watched it. It's just got to nobody. Maybe there's something in the algorithm doesn't like about it, and so it's blocking it or something. Well, maybe in 300 years' time, somebody will say, show me all the videos that were specially blocked in this time, the time of the trial of Diddy, and mine will come up. I don't know why. We don't know why. We don't know what anything's for. That's the law of the universe. And so I'm happy that nobody's watching it, even though it would be nice to see at least a few people were watching it, and that would give me some encouragement to make these videos. Yet I have to make them anyway. It's important that I make these videos. So I don't do this for any personal selfish reason. I don't do it to influence people. I don't do it, I'm not an influencer. I'm a philosopher, and the same as Krishnamurti was a philosopher, or Jesus Christ was a philosopher, or the Buddha was a philosopher, or C.W. Ledbetter was a philosopher, or all the founders of new religions. The founders, not the religion itself. All religions are false. As soon as they become an organisation, as soon as they're organised, they become corrupt. And so the teachings of the masters are not to be organised. And what I'm going to say in this video may disturb some of you. So you need to make sure that you watch the other 22 videos, however many they are, before you watch this one. Because you need to be prepared for this one, because this is a big one, yeah? This is a big video. I'm going to finish my coffee, and then I'm going to watch back what I've said. This is how this works. There's nothing edited in these videos. They're simply, if it takes me 10 videos to make a video, I simply have a shell script that puts all those videos back together into one, and they upload it. Okay, so that's how I'm able to make so many videos, one after the other, without getting caught up in the editing process. And so this is the opposite of AI. AI is a terrible thing, and the videos, One day you won't be able to find videos like mine. It'll all be AI and it'll be just terrible. You won't be able to watch YouTube. So I'm hoping that also makes my video stand out. There's no music, there isn't live music made on the spot, created in the moment. There's no pre-learned songs. I didn't practice anything before I did it. You're getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We're going to be talking about horses in this video. I'll see you in a bit. Now in this video we're going to be talking a little more about slavery, in particular its origin, where it comes from. And I'm going to be discovering this at the same time you're discovering it. We're going to be discovering it together, so to speak. We're working together, yeah. I don't know what the answer is. I have to find it for you, for all of us. The origin of slavery. Now, one of the first things man enslaved was the horse. Yeah. The horse was running free in nature, and man organised it so that it couldn't run free in nature anymore. He tied it up, its hoof, to a stake in the ground. That's what he did, because otherwise the horse would go. Now, there might have been an act before that of slavery, because when God put man into the Garden of Eden, he gave him his beautiful wife Elizabeth as his helpmeet, so that they could help each other. Yeah. Now, to help means to support, and it also means to serve. Now, to serve doesn't mean do this, do that. That's not serving. Serving is to work together. You know? When you get up in the morning, if you're a man, you say, oh, I better go and feed the horses. And if you're a lady, you get up and you say to yourself, you don't need to say to your husband, says, maybe I'll fix breakfast. And you do it for both of you. Yeah. This is working together. It's not one does this, the other does that, and I tell you to do what I want you to do. No, it's not one person sitting and the other person doing. It's both doing together. That's working together, means both acting, working together. 4 hands is better than 2. Yeah, that's what it's about. Okay. Now, there must have been a time when man enslaved woman. Yeah, when man said, do this, do that. Don't do this. And one can connect this time perhaps to the horse problem, yeah. Because man was living in the fields. He built his little house so he couldn't move around so much. And he planted his crops, which took time. He looked after his animals that were together with him, didn't have fences around them, they were just wandering free. They'd be there with him because they'd like to be. Yeah. The bees would be there. And so man and woman together on their little small holding, together with the other people, that formed the village. Yeah. And then there were children. Children came along. Yeah. Now, the thing about children is, children when they're born, they don't know anything. You have to teach them what they need to learn. They don't naturally know not to be abusive to others and not to destroy things, to be creative rather than destructive. And sometimes you need to teach children who are misbehaving to behave properly. And so that was the job of the parents. If the parents couldn't do it, they took the children to the elders of the tribe. And the elders of the tribe either made them learn or they got rid of them. Okay. Now, if you didn't do this, if you said, oh, I can't be bothered with these kids, this new generation, they've got no morals and blah, 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 and they're too lazy and all that, but all you do is you moan about it and you don't do anything about it. What happens is these children congregate into gangs, okay? And they start doing things like, let's go and catch that horse over there. Okay, and so the first gangs were organised groups of younger people without wives, without any investment in the land around them. They were roaming the countryside up to mischief. Okay, and so this is the first organisation. The natural organisation is what their parents were doing. Just living together. You've got to have a house, so you build a house. You've got to have, whatever you need, you put your hands to and produce it out of nature. This other thing is an organisation. Okay, let's get together. I'll be the leader. No, I want to be the leader. Oh well, we'll have a fight. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Okay, now I'm the leader. See? Oh, and everybody else. Yeah, and you will do what I say. Okay, let's go get some horses. You get the picture. So this is the first organisation. The first organisation. This is why I want to come to the idea that all organisations need to be banned. All organisations need to be banned. Because they're gangs, they're criminal gangs. Now, you go, no, surely not. Well, I'm taking you to the origin of it, because you don't need organisations to be organised. A village can organise naturally. Don't need to have people fight to be the top dog in the village. That's only to steal the top dog position from the actual top dog who naturally occupies that position. Okay. Now, because man went out and enslaved the animals, enslaved the horses, which is the freest animal. A horse loves freedom. Except when he's domesticated, yeah. He's like a slave. A slave loves his master and is subdued and has to do what his master says and becomes dependent upon being fed by the master and so on. So to put people into slavery, put horses into slavery, it requires a great deal of effort. But it's a very great deal of effort required for the slave to break free. Now we're finding that out at the moment because we're discovering in this moment of time all over the world at the same time, that we're all slaves, that we've been made slaves by, we're trying to find out who made us into a slave. And so we're made into a slave by the organisations, many of them. Okay. And the highest organisation is the organisation of organisations. And that is the New York Stock Exchange and all the other stock exchanges. And then the pyramid comes to a top somewhere, and it's the banking industry at the top of it all. So basically you've got a pyramid of organisations. That's what you've got, enslaving us. Now that's pretty much where we're going with this video. I'm going to justify all this and show you where it came from, how it developed. From the horse right the way through to the government, okay, of all the countries, in the US and our American Israel. I'll take 5. Now I made a mistake back there, and mistakes are the best part, and I said that the freest thing is a horse. Well, it's not actually. There's something freer than that, and the freest thing is a lady. A lady hates to be enslaved, cannot stand it even more than the horse. Okay. And the gangs, the organised gangs, were the thing that enslaved the ladies. Now I want to talk about that because there's an evolution to that. And I also want to talk about the evolution of bad weapons. Yeah, bad weapons. Now, in the natural order, if man has a problem with another man, he faces him directly, one-on-one, okay? And if it comes to a fight, he fights one-on-one. And it has to be a fair fight, yeah? If all you have is your hands, you fight with your hands. If one man uses his feet, the other man's going to use his feet. If one man pulls his sword out, the other one's going to pull his sword out. It's got to be a fair fight. You can't have a fight with one man with a sword and the man without a sword, yeah? Then the rest of the village will intervene. Say, no, 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 you can't do that, my God, fair fight, fair fight. Otherwise, how can God decide who the real winner is going to be? Because God's fortune shines on the one who is most just in the argument. Okay, so you've got an argument with two people, who's right, who's wrong, God decides. If you use, what I'm going to say is weapons of a certain kind, if you use weapons that act at a distance, then you can prevent yourself from learning this, because you can kill a few people at a distance and think you're better than them. But now you've got the karma of that, yeah. So everything carries karma of your own actions, right? And so if a man refrains from that, doesn't attack anybody from a distance using bad, illegal weapons, right? Then he doesn't suffer that karma. But if man if man actually does that, attacks men from a distance using bad weapons, illegal weapons, then he's going to have to be attacked himself with illegal weapons. There's a karma thing. As you sow, so must you reap. Yeah. It's a law eternal. So you need these pauses to take in what I've said. We need to talk about the gangs here. So, the gangs were first, I suppose, on horseback, and they probably used to get caught every now and again, get beaten up by the villagers. And so they said, well, we're going to have weapons so that we're more powerful than they are, so they can't get us. Yeah? We can kill them at a distance. And so they invented the bow and arrow. Yeah? Bow and arrow. And the bow and arrow wasn't very powerful, it wasn't very accurate, it wasn't very portable. It wasn't, the arrows weren't all the same weight and the same sort of perfect, so that they went perfectly straight all the time and the same distance and all that. So there was an evolution, if you like, of the bow and arrow. And this evolution was a coming together of the West and the East. The West and the East. It was a meeting of the West and the East. Because the arrowhead, which is made of bronze, which was always the same, that fitted into the shaft of the arrow, that device was coming from the West, okay? And the bow itself, the thing called the compound bow, which is a shorter, more powerful bow that could be carried on the back of a horse, okay, and shot quickly at a distance, many arrows, that came from the East, the China area, okay. And it somehow met in the middle, yeah, on the Silk Road, yeah, the Silk Road, in the middle of the Silk Road. And we had then the opportunity for these gangs to have horses, to have bows and arrows. And what they used to do was then they used to go and attack the Chinese who were like in their little villages. Suddenly a gang mounted on horseback with these terrible weapons would come in and shoot, 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 kill all the men, okay, and take what they wanted to take, right? Now, what they wanted was the product of the hands of the villagers. They wanted their cloth, their silks, the Silk Road, and they wanted their food. But the other thing they wanted was they wanted their women, okay? They wanted their women. Because no lady would go with these guys. They were just a gang of crooks, okay? So they had to steal their women, right? Steal their women. And women, fully grown women, were harder to cut off. So they used to steal young children, yeah, female children. Eventually they took young boys as well if they wanted to make them into slaves. But first of all they wanted the women, yeah, the young girls they wanted. And so from the meeting of these two cultures, from the West and the East, and these roaming gangs on horseback, originated the slave trade. Right? I'm going to take 5 and then we'll talk about the slave trade. The white slave trade, in fact. Now, what I've just described to you is the origin of tribalism. Because the tribe has to have a name, and the tribe is named after the leader of the gang, right? So these gangs become mobile, they camp out, okay? They're always moving because otherwise the people can find them and get rid of them. They're shifting, they've got tents, yeah? They've got tents and horses and weapons, and they're travelling from one place to another. As they run out of food in one place, they just go some other place, okay? So if Dan was the name of the leader, then they're the tribe of Dan, okay? Dan's bunch, yeah? And so the leadership of the tribe, when Dan passes on, his son takes over, his eldest son. So it's a kind of like hierarchical system, yeah, organisation. And they would fight one tribe against another tribe, you know, like gang warfare, this kind of thing. And the people just living on the land in one place, they were in the natural order. And they had to suffer these roaming tribes to come through the area, yeah. And they want them to pay tribute and become their slaves and all sorts of stuff. If you don't want to die, you better give us this, give us that, yeah. And so they're the origin, if you like, of political parties. Political parties are the same. They're like the tribe of Nigel Farage. Yeah, you can see the tribe, how it's created. There's a charismatic leader, and then they all gather together and they organise. And our group is the only group that matters, and you lot are all wrong, and we need to be in power. We need to be the boss of all. Yeah, this is the political party, the gang approach. Yeah, see it with the mafia and that. Competing gangs in the street. We have our turf, you have your turf. We're trying to steal your turf, you're trying to steal our turf. We can see that today. Look at Israel. Now, the slave trade has a word, right, that it comes out of. Slav. Slav, slave, right? Now, the reason it's called slavery and not Afrikanery is because the Slavs were whites, the whites. The Slavs were the East Germans and the Russians and the people living in that area, south of Sweden. We'll see why Sweden is important in a little bit. South of Sweden. And on the slave trade route, what they do is a gang would arrive, and the first thing they say is, have you got any Slavs? Have you got any Slavs? Because that was the kind of woman they wanted. They wanted white women. Slavs were white women. So slaves, the origin of the word slaves is white women. They wanted white women because in Arabia, which was kind of the heartland, the Semitic peoples were the heartland, if you like, of the slave trade. The slave trade went all over the place, but the centre of it was in the Middle East, and north of the Middle East. I'll get to the map in a bit. Just want to talk about it generally now. We're going to look at the map. And so there were slaves coming from Africa, there were black slaves, and there were white slaves coming from the north, yeah? Coming from the Vikings. The Vikings, by the 7th century, the Vikings were trading, they were trading their slaves for other stuff they could get, for silks and bows and all sorts of stuff that they could get. And so these Slavs, women, were coming from the north, all right? And the African women were coming from the south. They all came together in the Middle East, yeah. And in that area, if you had children that had whiter looking skin, that was regarded as better than if you had children with a black skin. It's kind of like racism, really, you know. It's the origin of racism. And so that's why Slav is the term for slavery, because they were preferred. They preferred white females. Okay, and they said, "Have you got any Slavs?" "Oh no, we've only got these here." But you know, I said, "Okay, I'll take those." People used to hear them say, "Have you got any Slavs?" They see them produce some blacks. They say, "Oh, that must be what the word is, slavery." Even the blacks themselves heard the word, "Have you got any Slavs?" So, "Oh, we must be slaves. We must be Slavs." The blacks called themselves Slavs. And though they were black. I'm going to take 5 to gather my thoughts on this, because there's a few different areas here we need to look at. Maybe the map. Before we get to the map, I just want to explain something else. Is the word Semite. Semite. Now, we tend to think of Semite as being somehow connected to Judaism. Well, it is kind of, but it's a wider term than that. Semite means there's many things it means. They say that the Semites were the tribe of Shem. Shem. Not so sure about that. Sem, the word Sem, I've got a few notes on it here that I made yesterday. The word Sem means similar to same. It means to stick together as a group. So Semites were those who stick together as a group. Now, we looked at the, I'm going to fold this over here. We looked at the way the runic alphabet, you see we've got Sem, and if we turn the M over, we've got So. So these are two, one is becoming this, the other is becoming that. And this is kind of like male and female aspects of the word. This becomes a male word, this is a female word. And so to sew means to join together many pieces, to join many pieces together. It's associated with working together, whereas Sem is to stick together as a group. That's what it means. So a Semite are those who stick together as a group. Now, to stick together as a group, you've got to identify yourself as being different from everybody else. So you've got to have, for you to be us, you have to create a them, right? I don't see there's an us with me. There's a natural us, which is all the people in the order of poets, bards and druids. But that's just the people who are like me, who have become enlightened and now part of this natural order. Whereas the Semites, what the Semites do is they say, we are different from you. We are different from you. So we're going to treat you differently. Yeah. There's us and we're all the same, but you are all different. Now that's what the Semite is. So it's a form of racism. Yeah. So when you say you're an anti-Semite, that means you're anti-racism. Racism, Semism is racism. Racism, that's what it means, racism. It means, it's also sexism. And it's sort of say, I'm a man, you're a woman, and so I can do what I like to you, yeah? Yeah, that's sexism, right? And then there's, I'm a homosexual, yeah? I'm a homosexual, and so I want to organise us into a whole bunch of homosexuals so we can be more powerful than you, yeah? Okay? So that's like, that's kind of, what they call that? Sexism, I suppose? I don't know. It's the group that identifies with the idea. It's an idea, right? They are the racists, the sexists. They are that. They are the ones who are accusing the others of racism. Okay? So if you divide yourself off and separate yourself off as a group, as a gang, right? So you say, we're our gang. Yeah, this is our gang. This is the Backstreet Boys, you know, we're the Backstreet Boys. And we don't like anybody who is, we can do whatever we like with all the women out there because they're not part of the Backstreet Boys gang, they're not. You know, we can just steal them and just do what we like with them, all right? That's how gangs behave, yeah? And gangs will go somewhere and they'll say, oh, come and have a drink, oh, come on. And then, you know, what happens is, you know, you get drunk, some young girl gets drunk and they end up getting gang raped by the gang, yeah? And the gangs think, oh, this is what we do, this is fine because we're the gang and you're nothing, yeah? That's racism and that's Semitism, okay? Semites are racist, there we go. Also, Sem is seed. Sem is from semen. Semen is to spread one's seed. Okay, so Semite is one who spreads seed, one who spreads their seed. So they don't have just one lady as a partner. They want to spread their seed, sow their wild oats wherever they go. Okay. Now I'm going to prove that shortly. You don't have to believe that. I'm going to prove that. Because it's in the religion of both the Jewish people, the Old Testament, the Bible, and it's in the religion of Islam, which is coming out of Judaism, as Christianity comes out of Judaism. It's also taught there. Yeah. And slavery of women is also taught, that you can do anything with your slave, woman. You don't have to have their consent or nothing. Okay. So all of these ideas have developed from this slave trade and the evolution of gangs roaming the Silk Route. So let's have a look at the Silk Route. Let's have a look at that map now. Okay, this map is from about 800 AD. And you'll see here we have the Byzantine Empire centered around Constantinople here. And that was the Roman Empire. This must be before 800. Or maybe it was still the Byzantine Empire then. Anyway, these are the main slave routes. There's one here running into the Byzantine Empire. There's another one here running through the Khazar Khaganate. Now you can see the Khazar Khaganate was the centre of the slave trade, and from there it went off to down the Silk Road here towards Pakistan and India and China and that way, and then down here through into Africa, and this is through the Middle East here. So, and this is Uppsala is in Sweden. This is the place of the Norwegians, the Norse, sorry, not the Norwegians, the Vikings, and they're also all the way around here. You can see how the Vikings, it was all done by boat as much as could be done, and using rivers, and then only across land where there was no rivers, yeah, so they were based on the rivers. You can see there's Kiev in Ukraine, so parts of Ukraine was in the Khazar Khaganate, and yeah, and this is the Slav area here, this area here, the area of Slavs, where the white slave trade, this was a white slave trade, it's coming out of Rus states, and so on, all around here, and from the Viking raids over to the UK, so on. Well, the Khazar Khaganate is a fascinating place because it's so hard to get any information about this place. You've got to dig into all sorts of weird ancient sources. It's not widely known or understood what the Khazar Khaganate was. Yet I've got a feeling that the Khazar Khaganate was like a first version of Israel, if you like, where the Jews kind of settled into a homeland of sorts. And it's hard to say the reality of it, because what happened was with the Jews was, after the destruction of the temple, all the Jews were cast out into the trade routes, the slave trading routes. And so they basically occupied those routes and became the main manpower, organizational power of those slave routes. Those slave routes were also the place that travellers would go. They would be the main routes if you want to travel from one part of the world to the other. You go down those trade routes, and slaves were one of the main things they were trading, because what happened was it took a long time to travel in those days, and so you had to have special places of safety, like little towns that were like outposts that were manned by the Jews. Typically were involved in the manning and planning and making sure that the goods were there to feed the people as they came through, and of course they provided alcohol, they provided drugs, and they provided women. Okay, and so all of that was associated with the Jews. After they left Jerusalem and was cast out into the world, they became traders, if you like. They helped the name for them in that particular part of the world, what they were called, but they were like the rulers, the sultans, or the people who were the boss. what happened was those people didn't want to do any organisational work. They were kind of regarded as holy, sacred leaders. And so they delegated that to whoever they could find that was most artful at that, and that was the Jews. And so the Jews became the organisers, if you like, of, I suppose, the Byzantine Empire. They were probably involved quite well in that. And maybe if the Byzantine Empire, because that was like Christian, they may have had to move from there into the Khazar Khaganate. But I do know that the Khazar Khaganate was the only place, call it a country if you like, that took the Jewish religion as a national religion. The only place in the world that's ever done that. And so I assume it was like a homeland of the Jews, where they were working together with the monarch of the place and to assist in the administration of the slaves. So they looked after all the slaves. The monarchs didn't really want to have anything to do with all that stuff, the actual work that was getting done. And so the Jewish people were like, because they were cleverer, brighter, more intelligent than everybody else, they were looking after the administration of the place. The money had to be supplied to keep, the goods coming, and the trade, the barter, whatever it was. They looked after all that. That was their speciality. They evolved to be experts in that area. And ultimately that evolution meant that they were the people who invented the share market and the banking systems and all those higher levels of organisation, which is so foreign to normal, everyday people. Because we're not evolved from that. We're evolved from people of the land. We're people of the land. The native peoples of Europe, they're people of the land. Yeah, they didn't organise themselves into gangs and stuff and try to organise the whole world for their own benefit. They just lived on the land, and that was enough for them. Now, it's not completely true, because there must have been competing tribes and stuff like that, because the whole thing has been an evolutionary process. Yet the Jews have a particular place in the history of the evolution of that kind of speciality of banking and finance and business and marketing and trading and accommodating and prostitution and alcohol and so on. For example, in Russia, the Jews owned all the public houses where people went to drink. They looked after all that, and they got the revenues for all that, and then they passed it back to the monarchs of Russia. It's an interesting study. You can study the evolution of the Jews, if you like, through time. It's very important for the world, because we've got to where we are through them. They've created the systems which we are now trying to dismantle, trying to alter, and to understand where we've come from is very important. And the racism and the fear of racism in the world, the fear of anti-Semitism. What is behind the fear of anti-Semitism? I believe it's actually a fear of us finding out what's really going on and the real history of all this. And who are the racists? Who have separated themselves off from the rest of the world and regard the rest of the world as not important? Not important. I want to play you a video that I came across, just a small part of the video that I came across recently. It's a Guardian journalist look at the current state of the Middle East in Jerusalem at the moment. And it's a tour guide talking about what the Israeli people, what they actually think, how they actually think about Jerusalem. Have a look at this, and then we'll talk about it. Now you can see there's clearly a temple sitting on Temple Mount, and that temple was built by the first great follower of Muhammad. The first generation of Muhammad's followers built that temple round about 700 AD. You know. And Muhammad is coming out of Judaism. Just like when Jesus appeared as the Messiah of the Jews, and they said, no, he's not the Messiah, get rid of him, all right? So now they're still, after Jesus is gone, they're still waiting for the Messiah, right? And their temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed after Jesus. So now they're waiting for the Messiah, and they're waiting for the third temple. This is supposed to all happen at the same time, right? So it's already happened. Muhammad came, he was the Messiah of the Jews, he traced his lineage directly back to Abraham, not to Moses. Moses is a funny thing about Moses. Yeah. What they say about Moses is not quite right. There's a lot of lies about Moses. Different books about the same story where Moses said different things. And there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that says Moses said do this and Moses said you should do that, and it was all written after Moses' time. But there is a thing called the Song of Moses, which I suspect is being retained in its original, because as a song, generally they don't tend to mess with that too much because everybody knows the song. Yeah, well, it's harder for them to change that. They can introduce a new book as like a discovery. Oh, we found this extra book and it's got all this stuff about Moses in it. Listen to this. You know, they can write that themselves. So there's quite a lot of stuff that could be Moses, stuff that might not be Moses. Some strange bad things that Moses said people should do. That why would a holy man say that? Yeah? It doesn't make sense, a lot of the Moses stuff. Yet, as far as I can tell, the Jews believe that everything in the Bible, in there, they don't call it the Bible, they call it there's a Talmud, which is what they say about the sayings, and then there's a Torah, which is what the equivalent to the Old Testament Bible. And it's a complicated book, and it's full of really bad stuff. It's full of good stuff too, but it's full of really bad stuff when it gets into this Moses area of Numbers and Deuteronomy and stuff like that. And so I suggest that you read Deuteronomy if you just want kind of a quick overview. Yeah, Deuteronomy is and it's got some ugly stuff in it about racism, yeah. So what I want to do is I want to pick out just one paragraph. I'm not going to go into any detail. I'm not going to try to cover any of it in detail or an overview even. It's just too complicated. But I'll give you one paragraph that kind of sums up the racist ideas of the Jewish people. And this is where the ideas come from. It's 1000 BC old. And it's not from a holy man at all. It's from some imposter. That Moses was killed. Moses and Aaron were both killed and left behind when the people entered the Promised Land. And they appointed another guy, I think it was Josiah, somebody like that. And a whole other group of temple priests came about, and they changed everything, you know. I said, you know what I'm talking about. So let's go to this paragraph. If I can, I'm going to have to get my computer. Bit of talking going on there. You might end up talking about this amongst yourselves. This might get talked about a bit. Okay, so this is Deuteronomy 7. 7 is a spiritual number. So this is supposed to be the spiritual teachings of Moses. Okay, it says here. And this is what they all follow it today. And if you look at the way Israel behaves, they follow these instructions by the letter. Okay, so this is it. This is where they get their ideas from, and why You can't just ignore the Jews and let them do whatever they like, because you're going to end up dead. Listen to this. It says here, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land where thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before you. Cast them out, yeah. The Hittites, the this, the that, the other, the Canaanites, and all the rest of them, whole list of nations. 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them. No piece of paper say peace or anything like that. No covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt, no mercy, okay. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. So no coming together of the races, no marriages which heal the past and bring the peoples together into one. None of that. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. You have nothing to do with them, not bring them into the family, nothing. No matter how good nor whatever, yeah, nothing to do with them. This is total, absolute racism, yeah. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So, already it's like, what's the word where you've got more than one God? It's the devil's work. I can't even think of the name for it. It must be the work of the devil to think that there's more than one God. There's only one God, yeah, one God for all humanity, and no other God that exists. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall you deal with them. This is how you should deal with them. You shall destroy their altars, break down their images, cut down their groves, burn their graven images with fire. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. That's enough. God says that's enough, all right? Now, there's loads and loads of this stuff in the Bible. I mean, this just goes on and on, the same stuff repeated over. It's like I'll put this back because there's files open on it. Alright. Linux is very clever how it deals with that. Even though it's not connected to the hard drive, it still knows where it's up to. Now this woman that I showed you in the video, she's actually waiting. You saw those graves that were on where she was. It was in some graveyard there, it's a very sacred graveyard in Jerusalem. They're all like tombs, like rectangular concrete or stone tombs, concrete probably. She's expecting those to pop open and the dead bodies to come out after the rebuilding of the temple. So that's what they're all waiting for. I mean, you can't believe this stuff, yeah. And the funny thing is I'm Adam, the first man. I already hopped out. You understand? I already hopped out. I'm not going to hop out in some dead body. Look, here's the cadaver in front of you that Adam came alive. No, I'm going to come alive in the body of a human being, right? So, the whole idea, and they'll never accept it. If I say, look, I'm Adam, first man, they say, oh, no, you're not, I don't believe it. Yeah. They don't believe it because they're just calling me a liar. Yeah. And my name is Elizabeth of Thuring. I said, there's Elizabeth Thuring. Look, she came out of the grave. All the prophecies are fulfilled right now in this end time. They're all fulfilled. I said, no, we've got to build the third temple. Now, the third temple's already been built. But when they come to build the third temple, what they're going to do is they're going to demolish that temple. that's there. They're going to actually demolish the third temple, thinking that they're going to build the third temple. And by demolishing the third temple, that will mean the whole thing's come to an end. The whole age is ended, from the flood of Noah to the great fire that we're in now. And the great fire started with the Syrian war, the refugees flooding into Britain, and all of the wars and burning, terrible stuff that's happened since then. That is the end time of this end time. It's a very great end time. And the Jews are waiting to fulfill it. And the Christians are also, they don't accept Muhammad either as a messenger from God, just like Jesus was. They don't accept it. And so they're also waiting for their Messiah, who already came. Yeah. And then the second coming of their Messiah, Jesus, well, if they don't count Muhammad, they could count Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti came for them, came for the Western world order, with a whole new teaching of humanity, how all the organisations have to go, but it's all no good. You can't organise anything, especially religion. And religion is politics, that's what I say. Religion is politics is religion. It's the organisation of something which shouldn't be organised. Natural order. I'll play the video of her talking about the bodies coming out of the grave now, okay? I am the body that came out of the grave. That's what she's waiting for. Watch what she's waiting for. Now people with these ideas, this religion, which is what your religion is, what your ideas are, they've got no respect for anything. So they just, all they do is just destroy everything that anybody else ever made, okay? Because to them it's just blasphemy. It's blasphemy for them. It's the altars of the foreigners. The foreigners are worthy only to be slaves. Their religion teaches us that everybody who's foreigner, they can be slaves. Yeah? And they passed on those teachings into Islam also. So Islam also has some of these ideas. Now the other ideas that they have that's similar to Islam is about the seed, yeah. And so I don't know how to say this, because I shouldn't talk about these things, because I think it's not right. It's disgusting to talk about this stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to say it, because otherwise you won't know what it is, okay? And that is that masturbation is not allowed in both Judaism and Islam. It's the same. So that's what it's the same religion. It's just a new version of the new Messiah of it. Yeah. Same as Christianity is a new version of the new Messiah, the first Messiah. Yeah. And so, but it's okay for them to have sex with a slave woman. They can have slave women have sex with them. But they cannot waste their seed. Their seed has to be preserved. So that's why they're called Semites, those who preserve their seeds. And both Islam and Judaism follow those teachings. And that's why we've got a problem in England with the grooming gangs, in the UK with the grooming gangs. So before I finish this video, I want to tell you the origin of the grooming gangs, because now you understand the background of the whole thing. When I tell you where the grooming gangs come from, you say, ah, I understand. Okay, so I'll take 5, and that'll be the final part of this video. Okay. Now in 1960, I think it was, they built one of the biggest dams in the world in what is now northern Pakistan. I think it was like Kashmir or somewhere like that at the time, but it was on the Silk Route because it's a major, I think it might be the Indus River. It's one of those big rivers that run through the area that was a main slave trading route. Okay, and to make this dam, they had to flood a huge part of the river, and like 100,000 maybe, something like that, or between 1 and 200,000 people living there who were actively involved in a huge part of the slave trade. It was like an absolute huge thoroughfare of slavery. So they were like, right, they've been bred to be slavers, everything to do with slavery and Judaism and all that stuff. They were right there in the heart of it. They were physically transported from those villages to Sheffield in England. Okay, and so these people were living in the 1960s virtually the same way as they live in 800 AD. You know, pretty much. Not quite, but it wasn't that long ago when they were involved in all this stuff. And because for generations they'd lived off travellers, off selling prostitution and selling drugs and alcohol and selling a bed for the night and selling kebabs and all the rest of it to the travellers, this is all they knew. They knew how to behave like a gang. Yeah, they're there, and all the people just moving through and just fleecing the people as they move through. You know, the hospitality industry. I mean, Christianity is no hospitality industry. Everybody on the road is a pilgrim, and the pilgrims are the highest visitors. You just give them everything. Yeah, that's a pilgrim. But in the Judaism, no, you fleece the pilgrims. Yeah, you fleece them. And that's what Muhammad didn't like when he came, is that they commercialised all the holy sites. So the first thing Muhammad did was he drove them all out, all the merchants corrupting the holy sites with commerce and prostitution and alcohol and all that sort of stuff. He drove them out. And that was Christianity there at the time. Yeah. Drove them out of Christianity. So all these people ended up coming to England in the Sheffield area, okay, Rotherham, and they're just the evolution of that, really. And so they're gangs. They don't mix. They don't regard anybody who's white, it's a white slave, it's a Slav. They don't regard them as anything but something that's outside of them, you know, that's just allowed. They can do whatever they like. There's something to have sex with instead of masturbating. They're not allowed to masturbate, so they have to have these young girls. They like them young, the younger the better. And so they keep them in places where all their men can share them. When they feel like having a wank, they go and use these girls. And that's basically what it's all about. And they're just the evolution of drug gangs, prostitution, alcohol. Not so much alcohol in Islam, because I don't think alcohol's a big thing, but drugs, yes, yeah. Smoking stuff. So it's all very sad. But if we understand it, and there's more to understand about it, where it comes from, this using your power, abusing your power. I spoke about that in some of my earlier videos. That it's an abuse of power to tell people what to do, and that's how they enslave these women. They say, do this, do that. They give them gifts to get them, and then they say, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Oh, come on, I gave you this, you owe me. They have all sorts of ways of getting these young girls under their control. And once they're indoctrinated, it's a cult, yeah? That's what it is, it's a cult. All religions are cults. And it's just terrible stuff. And until we face it, face its origins, understand where it comes from, where other things come from like it, what the problems are in the parliament, because all those parliamentarians, they also want little girls too, because of their sadomasochism practices, as the way they behave in Parliament, where the submissive, dominant submissive aspects to their lives, where none of us should be dominant and submissive. We should all be working together in freedom, not one dominating the other. And so Judaism is all about power, dominating one above the other and lying about it, telling lies about it. It's completely corrupt. It's been going on, it's obsolete from the time of Jesus. Ever since Jesus came, the Jewish religion should be banned. And it was banned in many places, but people have forgotten about where it comes from, what it's all about. And it still survives, and it goes on and goes on and goes on. Yet, out of it comes very good things. We've had Bob Dylan has come out of it, and Leonard Cohen has come out of it. Quite a few great things have come out of Judaism. Yet the bomb has come out of it, yeah. The atom bomb and stuff like this, and bad science, yeah. Marxism and all that stuff, which is also organizational, yeah. And so there's a struggle in Judaism. One side produces Marxism or socialism, the other side produces Donald Trump and that lot. But it's two sides of Judaism, and the poor people are left just not able to live their lives. Everything's been taken from them, and now they're forced to kind of find a solution, drive a solution out of whatever's coming out now. And it's time to stand on the spot and say enough is enough. It's the end, yeah? It's the end. What's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. And don't let anybody say that this is good and that is good and bombing people's good, and that the Palestinians are bad and the Jews are good. Anybody who destroys anything, nature, is bad, evil, evil, evil. You can't get your way by using abuses of power, by making terrible death-dealing machines of destruction. And it all started from the arrow, and you shouldn't even use that. You should be fighting. If you want to fight, fight one-on-one with boxing gloves on. I give up. Anyway, I said this was the last video, and I do want to read the prophecy of Moses, because the Song of Moses, it says a completely different thing than what the Jews say about the, what's going to happen in the end time of that. No, it says the Jews are finished forever. That's what Moses' Song of Moses says. And the Jews will read it and say, oh no, it doesn't say that, surely it doesn't say that. But then now they read it again now, and they realise what it says. So I'm going to get it, and I'm going to read it to you. No, I'm not. Yeah, I need to do it here. So, it's Deuteronomy chapter 32. Now, I'm going to start part with it because the first part is all about all the good stuff about Israel, what God did for Israel, right? And now it says, but Jeshurun is the people of Israel, Jeshurun, waxed fat and kicked, thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger, provoked God to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God. Talking about the children of Israel, whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom their fathers feared not. Of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful. Thou hast forgotten God that formed thee, the God of Abraham. Yeah. And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. Okay, so, and he said, I will hide my face from them. God said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very froward generation, children in whom there is no faith, the Israelites. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. I will provoke them to anger with foolish. I will cause them to strife together with foolish nations, other foolish nations. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, I kindle the fire, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her incense, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. There's a fire coming, yeah? Just like Noah said, or Enoch said there was a flood coming. Noah. You get the picture. Moses is saying there's a fire going to come. I will hit mischiefs upon them. I will spend mine arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger. He's going to send arrows on them. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them, with the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of grey hairs. This is what's going to happen to Israel, yeah? Not what they say, not all the stuff come running out of the... This is their Moses telling them this. For they are a nation void of counsel, rather is there any understanding in them? Is there any understanding in them? Do they understand anything that I've said to them? Is what God says to Israel. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they will consider their latter end. Consider what will happen to you in the end. Consider the end. Yeah? How should one chase 1,000 and put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them and the Lord had shut them up? For their rock is not our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. Their vine is the vine of Sodom. Their vine is the vine of Sodom, and the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall, and their clusters are bitter. Now, the Jews read this and they think they're talking about the enemy. No, they're talking about the Israelites. Yeah. Their wine is the poison of dragons, and the cruel venom of asps. Is not this laid up in store with me, God? Is this not laid up in store with me and sealed up among my treasures? Have I not sealed all this up? Can be not changed. To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. So their karma is going to come. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand. And the things that shall come upon them, make haste. It's coming quickly to them. Yeah. It says, for the Lord shall judge his people, and repent himself for his servants, when he seeth that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And he shall say, where are their gods, their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you, be your protection. Let all these false gods that you're worshipping to be your protection. Not me. not me. That's what Moses said. Not me. Moses is speaking on behalf of God. For I lift up my hand to heaven and I say, I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies and will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives from the beginning of revenges upon the enemy. Rejoice, O ye nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land and to his people. So the true people of God, the real people of God, he will be true to them. Rejoice, all you other nations, all you nations, okay? But this nation of Israel, the Israel nation, which came out of Jacob, that is going down, okay? That's what he says. And Moses came and spoke all the words of his song on the ears of the people, he and Hoshea the son of Nun. And Moses made an end of speaking all these words to all Israel. These were the last words that he said to Israel. He says, you are finished. And then, I'm not going to carry on reading it, then he had to go, it took him up to the mount, him and Aaron, and they murdered the two of them. That was the end of them. And the people of Israel, they went off with a new prophet and a new priesthood. So that's basically the end of Moses, yeah. So it's only in this time that this can be read in this way. Up until now, people have read this. God has made people read this in a different way to force people into his plan of action. Yeah? And only those people, even now, anybody who accepts all the prophets, all the messiahs, can be saved. Yeah. Even now, all those people in Israel can be saved. All you got to do is admit, yeah, Jesus, Nazareth, he was the Messiah, so the Jews made a mistake in the temple, right? That's easy to do, you can see that. And Muhammad, he was a saviour, the second saviour of the Jews, came in the same area of the Jews, and he came to save them, and he built the temple, so there you go, it's all proven that he was the Messiah. Yeah? And then Krishnamurti, you can take, yeah, okay, Krishnamurti was sent, he was the Messiah for the Christians, they can accept that. It's pretty easy to see that Krishnamurti came as a Messiah. And it's easy to see that I've come, and I'm doing a similar job. To Enoch, really, to Enoch. Krishnamurti didn't do the Enoch job. I'm doing the Enoch job. This is the Enoch job. Tell people it's the last chance, it's the last days. Enoch before the great flood. I come here before the great fire, okay? I'm the last prophet before the great fire, okay? The last prophet. The 13th Imam, I think they call it in Islam, something like that. That must be what I am. You can decide yourselves. You know, it's up to you lot. Or you can wait forever, like the Jews did. Take your pick, yeah? Take your pick. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. You're all grown up now. You've had 2,000 years to think about all this stuff. You either grew up or you didn't. And if you persist in your illusions about what might be, what was, what might come, and miss what's here, then woe be to any of you in that situation. I'm not going to deliver. Moses has already said it. Moses' statement still stands. Yeah. if you want to go into it in more detail, you can have a look at this diagram here. I hope that's in the middle of the screen. Thanks for watching.